Tough because I've seen people with I'm talking about some straight killers and they can't get a job right now.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And I don't know what's going on. I'm like, is it because of the industry or is it because like now it's not even about applying for jobs. You gotta know somebody at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like it's kind of like a tech bubble, right? You know, the housing crisis in 2008. It's a tech bubble. You have AI coming in where the perspective, at least, is that the average worker can be replaced, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's more so that AI is an amplifier, right? So if you have one or two high performing people that really know the process and understand what they're doing, giving them a tool, an AI tool can make it to where they can do the work of 6 to 10 average people. The technology and understanding the application and the meaning of the stuff comes into play. That's where you can't be a checklist person. Well, one, you have to understand that whenever there's a major change in an ATO, you have to be reassessed for another ATO. That's issue number one. So in the process of moving to the cloud, you have to redo the entire ATO assessment.
You do.
Yes.
Oh man.
There may be exception cases, but the general rule is you're going to have to do a full ATO.
Look, you probably have a security plus, maybe even a security clearance, and nobody taught you how to write poems, or how to test a security control, or submit an ATO package. I'm Chris Okpala. A few years ago, I was in your shoes, qualified on paper, but completely lost when it came to RMF. I had the degree, I had the search, I had the drive, but when somebody said how to test the AT2 control or validate stick bindings, I had no clue what that actually looked like. Fast forward 5 years, I worked across DoD and federal agencies, led control assessments, written ATO package, and passed audits. That's why I built RMF Academy, to teach you the real world execution they don't cover in certification books. Inside, I'll show you how to write a poem and don't get bashed back. Test and validate security controls, translate tech jargon, navigate NIST 853, and RMF with confidence. If you're in IT supporting the government systems or stuck on the edge of cybersecurity, this is your way. The people who go through my training don't just get hired, they hit the ground running because they practice the work before day one. Go to rmfacademy.io and let's get to work.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the Tech Woke Podcast. I am your host, Chris, an information system security officer in the GovTech space. And in today's podcast, we're going to have a very good podcast today. This is close to home to me. I work in the compliance space. So in the compliance space, I know everybody, I always talk about Izzos, information system security engineers. But in this podcast, I'm very excited because we actually have a SCA-R. A SCA-R is one of the people that evaluates the ATO process and get your packages approved and evaluate a lot of things going forward. So the person that we have on this podcast today, his name is Dominique Richardson. He went to Georgetown University. He also has a CSSP. He's also been working in this space for a very, very long time. And without further ado, hey Dominique, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I appreciate you coming on this podcast on a Saturday afternoon. You could be partying, you could be doing all these stuff, but you're coming here to get back to the community, get back to these lovely people. So, love you, be on the podcast.
No, I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like at this point I'm at, sometimes we have to remind ourselves to, lift our head up and look around and say, okay, what position am I in now? Am I in a giving position now? And sometimes we fall short in that area, and I'm just trying to find a way to give back now that I'm where I'm at now.
Yeah, because for those that don't know, I'm a big fan of Deion Sanders. Prime time, shout out to Prime Time. So he loves football, and he talks about taking from the game, but you got to give too. So we got to do this, and this is why we do what we do.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I love that you came on this podcast today so we can talk about SCA-Rs, what they do. I have a lot of questions too, because even when I first talked to you, I was like, yeah, I feel like we got beef, but we don't have beef. It's just we don't understand what each other does. And you know what the Izzo does. I just don't know what y'all do. So now I'm glad you're coming on. So, just for the audience that's not familiar with you, just give a quick bio. Tell the audience about yourself real quick.
All right. My name is Dominique Richardson. I went to Hampton University for my undergrad in physics. At first, I was part of the ROTC, and I joined the Army while I was there. So then as I progressed and graduated, I kind of fell into engineering. First, I was doing networking stuff, project management stuff. Then I gradually transitioned into Izzo work, right? So as I started getting more into this process, I started looking into other opportunities, and I know I got invited to be a SCA, and I was like, okay, I would love to be on the other side because I wanted to grow my experience and get better at what I do. And I mean, career-wise, that's mainly been the progression.
I know that. So to the audience, can you explain like what is a SCAR? What do they do?
All right, so a SCA is a Security Control Assessor Representative. Basically, we're the contractors that work with the agency, and the agency will have one point of contact, which will be just the SCA, the Security Control Assessor, and we act on their behalf to do the assessment for all the packages and the changes going into a system. So, for example, if there's a change request, if there's a POAM, if you're pushing for a full ATO, we go through that process with you and tell you what needs to be changed and what needs to be modified.
So basically, what you're telling me, you're one of the people that review, validates, and just to make sure us ISOs know what we're doing, and making sure everything is being processed through the programs correctly.
Now, that's one way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I got you. I got you. As being a star, can you kind of explain like, we use the 7 steps of RMF. What step do you usually focus on when being a scar? Because I know with ISOs we kind of do like all 7 of them, but I know with scars there's probably like either 1 or 2. But which primary one do you focus on?
Mainly we do 4 through 6, right? Primarily we do validations. So let's say there's a package that's coming up into EMAS. We would look at it, we would assess it after the data is classified, and all those steps, the 0 through 3 are done. At that point, you have your self-assessment that the system owner has, right? They assess it themselves. They have their CCIs and their technical validation done. They have their scans uploaded, whether it's STIG or ACAS. They have their SCG where they're saying, okay, these are the software that we have, and they push it out into EMAS. From there, there's a process to go through where you go from that self-assessment to being validated by us and then saying, okay, this is good to go to get pushed to an ATO because we understand the risk that's associated with it. We validated it, right? So that's primarily what I do.
Okay, so understood. So you're valid. So when it comes to an ATO package, when you're going through an ATO package, everybody always talks about getting a 2 to 3 year ATO is in our space is very good.
Yeah.
But I always focus on the continuous monitoring portion. But how do you get a 2 to 3 year ATO? What goes into that?
Whew, that's a lot, right? There are 4 main package assets that contribute to that. There's a SSP, the System Security Plan. There are the POAMs, which is basically saying the plan of action and milestone, where you're saying this is what you're going to do for the stuff that's not compliant, right? Where the mitigations and the plans and how you actually are structuring it and how it's going to be checked, right? Then there's the SCA-R, right? Where it's an assessment of the entire posture of the package, right? And the 4th is the letter itself saying you have an ATO or you don't. And that letter will also contain the conditions of the ATO. So everything is really structured around getting those 4 artifacts. And mainly what we focus on is a documentation review to make sure that the processes are in place. We make sure the document is signed and current and up to date. We also focus on the technical validation as well as the CCI validation. For technical, we're looking at the scans. We go through the actual system components and we look at each part saying, okay, this is in place, this is in place, this is in place, right? So that could be like network configurations. We'd be looking at the actual switch or router to verify that. For the CCI validation, that's the actual breakdown of the individual checks based on the NIST RMF and based on what classification of data it has, right? That's just controls themselves at the lowest level. So once we go through those 2, we get an understanding of the package itself by having a risk assessment based on all that. And then we look at the risk assessment. We look at how many findings are still open, and we say, okay, based on this is the overall risk posture of the system. And from there, we really just hand it to the SCA and the AO to decide after we give them that breakdown and we advise from that position.
Yeah, because like just to clarify to the audience, a SCAR, Security Control Assessor Representative versus the SCAR. So usually a representative is just independent entity that kind of reviews, and then you send it to the government official the SCA-R to review. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically. The SCA is one person, right? And usually when the SCA is one person, it's for a huge number of systems, up to 100, sometimes over 100 for different agencies,
Sometimes
right?
1,000.
Yeah, exactly. It can get very large. So at that point, um, we're basically his hands and ears, right? We go into the system, we work with the individual ISOs, we work with the ISM to say, okay, this is where it needs to be to meet these requirements, and we advise based from there. So that's really what the role we fill.
Okay, so like when you're doing this role, I know sometimes when somebody's sending a package up, they can either sometimes they fib a little bit about what the system is, what's going on in the system, or maybe they just didn't have the correct information. How would you resolve that with the programs in the ISOs?
It depends. It depends what the discrepancy is, what the issue is. For the most part, I personally prefer to try to reach out to the ISO independently and directly, and establish that relationship. But it can also get very political, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to accurately communicate the information. I'll say it like that. So, but from there, I'll reach out and say, hey, look, these are issues I noticed. And it can get to the point where it's could be cross training, or it could be just explaining or pointing out. And from there, we help them understand what the issue is so that they can come back with a better product.
Okay, so you kind of a middleman, and when you're reaching out to these people, I know from coming from your lane, you have to have all your ducks in a row before you even go talk to them.
Yes,
Because I know you get challenged a lot by programs,
exactly. Yes, a lot.
so you got to make sure you got the emails, them the
CYA.
documents,
CYA. Yes. You gotta be on point. You have to be on point. You gotta be accurate with whatever you say. You gotta be consistent with what you say. It has to be consistent with the past stuff. For everything you say, you have to be able to point to documentation, either from the agency or from the RMF knowledge site, saying this is why this is not good, or this is why this is not good.
Yeah, because even as an ISO, I have to deal with that too. Because sometimes with compliance, they don't really care. They just like we're just gonna go do. Versus, and we have to have set rules because if these rules are not in place, then we can't move forward. And it's just that's the issue I've been dealing with RMF in general. It's like, how do we do it? And I wish in the future we go to like a continuous. We're gonna get further down on that on like a continuous
For sure.
package or something. But working in this space, there's different types of ATO packages. Can you kind of break those down? Like, and what is an ATO package?
All right. Well, ATO is authority to operate. Basically, it's the permission slip for a system to work in a government space, right? So there are different kinds based on what level or what you're trying to do with the system. It mainly breaks down into three kinds, right? There's the full ATO, where you have full authority to operate based on the data and the information level that's approved, right? There's the IATT, which is the interim authority to test, where you can't run live data, but you can stand up enough to actually test, and it has like limited requirements to actually get it up to that point, all right? And then there's the ATOC, or ATO with conditions. And that's kind of a middle ground where a system can be live, but we acknowledge like these are the risks associated with it. These are issues or conditions that have to be met for it to get a full ATO. So it's like, okay, we can run this, but we know what the issues are with it. I guess that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, because I think most packages are like an ATO with conditions. So, majority like because I was confused too because I never seen a program get a full ATO. It's always like you have a conditions or maybe or extension or it's ATO extension. So that's what I was confused on that.
Well, the extension can apply to the ATO or the ATOC. It's not based on the information provided by the knowledge service site. It's not supposed to extend to an IATT, right? Because you're just testing. Why would you need an extension for a system that you're just testing at that point, right? So the extension can apply to both, though, ATOC and ATO. Now, from my perspective, at least, the reason a lot of systems get an ATOC as opposed to a full ATO is that, you want to have a working minimum viable product as soon as possible. The easiest way to do that, or the quickest way to do that, I should say, is to have an ATOC and then meet the conditions. It's like a middle step between not having anything and having everything you need,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's the big difference between the two.
Oh, okay. So I get what you're saying. So that was a good breakdown. So tell me about SCA-R. Tell me about like how political, because you're in a different situation where you have to approve systems. We do know there's some, maybe a national security system that needs to get approved. It doesn't get approved, or it doesn't because it doesn't have, it's not caught up to anything. And sometimes people want to put a program, push things and push things off. How do you deal with stuff like that? Or you're dealing with certain government officials. Like, how do you work around that?
It can get, you're navigating three things, right? You're navigating the technical, where you're looking at the system itself and you're saying, okay, this is not or is compliant because of this. You're navigating the audit process, right? You have to understand how NIST RMF goes into it. And then you have to navigate the political. Now, for all three, one, you have to understand you're an independent assessor. Everything you do, your name goes on and you are responsible for. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to be accurate in everything that you do. With that said, you also have to understand that the SCA and the AO are the ones who ultimately make the decision. You're advising on it, right? And another thing is you have to understand I guess, I'm not going to say the political climate, but you have to understand what it is you're navigating and what the stakeholders are really looking for or trying to do based on what's there, right? So, for example, if a system is actually, if it's not compliant, but there's a reason it has to stay up, you have to understand what's going on there, and you have to do your best to secure the system as much as possible. Because at the end of the day, we're protecting our country, right? But we have to make sure the country runs.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Because you got people actually fighting wars and they need certain systems.
Exactly.
So
It's sometimes you got to remind yourself it's a national security system. Like this is very important.
yeah, very, very, very important.
Yeah.
They can, if you get that title, that means that if it goes down, a lot of things go down.
Exactly. Yeah.
So working as a SCA-R, wait, what are some other issues of working as a SCA-R that you dealt with?
I'd say the most difficult thing to navigate would be the politics, right?
It's politics.
Because you have to be, like I said, you have to be privy to everything that's going on. And a lot of organizations and a lot of independent contractors can take a more adversarial approach, right? So it's like, I used to call, in the government, there's government workers and then there are contractors. Contractors are often treated as like second-class citizens in different situations and scenarios.
You're literally just, unless you're like a head of a contracting company, you're literally second class citizen.
I mean and that's a culture issue. But even outside of that, you just have to make sure your T's are crossed, I's are dotted. You got to have your ducks in a row, and you got to have leadership that represents and stands up for you very well, which fortunately I've been blessed to have.
Thank
Right.
the Lord.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. So we're gonna move forward inside of kind of like the cloud environment.
Okay.
So like, can you kind of break down like what's the difference between a regular ATO and kind of like more of a cloud ATO or provisional ATO or and if I'm saying it wrong, just break it down better. But kind of break the difference between those.
Okay. So one, with cloud systems, for the regular ATO, there's other things you have to worry about, right? The biggest things, in my experience at least, are the inheritances associated with it, right?
Yeah.
So you might have a cloud system nested in a cloud system nested in a cloud system. You might have an enclave that sits in AWS GovCloud, and then in that enclave, there are different systems that are within it, right? And each one inherits from the other. So it's like a nested egg kind of thing, right? And that's where you get into IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, infrastructure as a service, where it's just the baseline hardware, PaaS, where platform as a service, and SaaS, where it's just the software itself. You're responsible for the data and what settings you have, right? So for the regular ATO, that's what you have to worry about. Now, the CCSRG is the highest reference for all that stuff. So from there, you have the PATO, which can be the FedRAMP PA, You have the DoD PA, which has reciprocity with everything else. And then you have the actual ATO, right? So what happens for this FedRAMP process, there's something called the FedRAMP handbook that you can look at too. That's, out there. But you'll have a system where it's approved for to be on the FedRAMP environment, right? So there's a FedRAMP site where there's a cloud service offering and a cloud service provider. The provider creates the offering. The offering is assessed by a third-party assessment organization, or 3PAL.
3PM.
And then from there, it goes into the FedRAMP marketplace if it's sponsored by an agency, right? Because the agency has to say there's a need for it first. So from there, let's say there's a cloud service offering that's already sponsored. You take that cloud service offering, you use a business case to say, okay, this is why the agency needs it. And then the agency itself has to assess it as well. So for example, there's a JVT.
I know JVT, yep.
Yeah, exactly. Where you go through and you take the cloud service offering and you say, okay, now the agency has to verify that what the 3PAL said was accurate. So you assess that, and then from there, you go to the process to get a full ATO.
So it's the same thing, and you get an EMAS instance also.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
After you go through all that, and then you have to get certain documentation too.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's just a high level summary. There's a lot of details within
It's
that.
a lot.
A lot.
But I ain't gonna lie, you out of all the people I had on, you broke it down the best. Like, that was the good breakdown.
I try.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah. For it to be that complicated to break it down, man, that was good. That was good. That took me a while just to understand that process.
Oh yeah. It can be tedious, it can be difficult, but it can also be rewarding, right?
So what is your role in that? You're just assessing those ATOs, or
I've done a bit all over the place.
Mhm.
I've been on JVTs. I've assessed for full ATOs for cloud environments. I've actually helped with sponsoring a cloud service offering and walked through that process as well.
Oh, you did all.
Yeah, so those are the main three I've done. So got a lot of experience, or a decent amount of experience, at least in that.
Because I feel like with the government space, everybody wants to go to the cloud, but it's like some programs don't need to go to the cloud. I just think it's just a thing that everybody wants to do. It costs a lot of money to even get it there.
I mean, it depends. You have to have a good reason, of course, yes. And there are some things where you're not going to be able to go to the cloud because, I mean, the agency already has this environment where they say, okay, we can have it here. There's no issue with keeping it here. But in a lot of instances, going to the cloud can save a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Because you're offloading a lot of that responsibility. Also, it's a good way to verify that things are secure. Because what's easier to secure? 1,000 little systems that are each their own thing, or 1,000 systems that exist in an enclave where that enclave is secure.
Yeah. It's already secure and it's already been vetted, so I would trust that more.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's often the case with, moving to the cloud.
Like you heard, what are some of the issues with moving to the cloud or with the ATO process?
Well, one, you have to understand that whenever there's a major change in an ATO, you have to be reassessed for another ATO. That's issue number one. So in the process of moving to the cloud, you have to redo the entire ATO assessment.
You do?
Yes.
Oh man.
There may be exception cases, but the general rule is you're going to have to do a full ATO.
So like, say when you mean redo it, say if you're in the process of getting into the cloud and you have to get an ATO from the agency, do you mean that if something changes within that, say if you already got a process and got an ATO, you got to redo it if something changes?
Yes, but think about it like this. How much is actually changing when you migrate from on-prem to the cloud?
Everything.
Exactly. The entire infrastructure is changing. You're moving into a whole new house. So when you're making that much of a significant change, most of the time you're going to need a full-on ATO, because even within the RMF knowledge service, it says if there's a significant change to the system, there are two processes you can take. You can take the change request for things that are relatively small, or you have to do a full ATO if it's a major change.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I agree. Cause like, now that I think about it, you're changing diagrams. You gotta get the SRGs, those STIGs.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta create a document. Documentation is a beast. You gotta get an ISCP. Most programs don't even have those. So yeah, you're changing everything. So I get what you were saying. Like everything has to change. Any other issues, or that's the main one?
I mean, that's the main one, of course. You're gonna have to redo the entire process.
And then I know with programs, they kind of coming at you. Hey, we need to hurry up and move as soon as possible.
Yes.
And they're like, I can't do nothing for you.
There's often a sense of urgency when what needs to be done beforehand isn't done, if I'm being honest.
So like in the ATO process, like testing controls and reviewing controls, are there some controls that can be more difficult?
Yes.
Give me examples.
Okay. There are network architecture controls that really depend on the network architecture, obviously. There's some where you have to assess for something that's no longer there, so you have to find the next best thing. There are some controls where you have to have a very good understanding of how the software works within the application, or if it's containerization, how it's orchestrated.
Containers are a beast.
Yes, like any microservices, serverless architecture, depending on how it's done, there can be a lot you have to assess for.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna move forward to kind of like the trends. And no, actually, let me go back to I had a couple more questions. So how would somebody become a SCA-R?
Being Izzo, that's the easiest way. If you have access to it, the Navy Qualified Validation certification path, to do that, you have to be in the Navy and be working as either an Izzo or a validator for a Navy or DoD agency. Certifications, basically it mirrors the stuff for the Izzo. You just have to have a bit more experience. And also, there are 2 certifications that are outside of that path. The CISA, Certified Information Systems Auditor, and the CGRC, I think it's called. It might have been updated since I last checked, but those are the 2 that I would think of that are specific to what we do.
And is it worth becoming a SCA-R? Because I've seen people become a SCA-R without being an ISO, but is it worth being a SCA-R, or do you think it's a good job?
I mean, I like it.
Yeah.
It pays well. I'd rather be on this side than the other side.
Yeah, doing all the
Right.
work. You learn more.
Oh yeah, you learn about everything. There's a certain thoroughness that you have to have, and there's a certain level of pride I take in protecting, the interests of the country and making sure stuff is secure for us. You know what I mean?
No, that's great to have, because a lot of people always ask me they want to get into cybersecurity and they want to work in the space. Originally, I just want to do it for the money, but after a while, that can't be your only motivation.
Exactly. I mean, there's a couple things that make cybersecurity great and make it horrible at the same time. The first is that everything you need to know is accessible, right? You can't learn to be a bartender unless you're a bartender. But with cybersecurity, everything you need to know, you can do yourself and build a reputation for it and become competent in all by yourself, right?
Yeah.
The second is that the industry changes so fast, right? I'd say if you work 8 hours a day, you're going to have to put an hour and a half to 2 hours aside every day to make sure you stay relevant. And the higher up you get, the more time you have to put in outside of the job to make sure you stay relevant, whether that's certifications, whether that's conferences, learning new technologies, whether that's brushing up on your coding, whether that's actually configuring different systems, right? So that's point number 2. And point number 3, I compare it to like learning a language, right? When you first learn Spanish, for the first 2 years, you're not gonna be able to speak it with nobody. You're gonna hear it, it's gonna sound fast, you're just gonna struggle. But once you get to a point where it's like the dots are finally connecting, you have it. It's like riding a bike. It's like you can always recall it and you can always understand it at its basis level. So I think but they have to be willing to put in the time to get to that point.
Yeah, it's just the time. Like even me, I work 8 hours a day. You got to deal with all that, learn all that knowledge. Then I got to put in another 3 to 4 hours in the business, just understanding what people want to hear, technology. And I got to do another joint. I mean, another sometime. I teach stuff on RMF, and then that. So at some point you can get burnt out doing that job too.
You can.
Yeah, so
You have to remind yourself of why you're doing it on a regular basis, whether it's daily or weekly. You have to thank God for giving you the grace to understand it and to keep going the way you do, right? And You just have to be humble and find what you love about it, just like anything you do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like, you just gotta find some love, and that's what I do. I take pride in just knowing that the system's secure, knowing that I'm taking the job seriously, and that's what makes me go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, with SCA-R, like, how much money can you make? Like, what's the range? Because I know, like, when you get to that level, that's kind of a high tier job at that point. It's like what you can make doing that job.
I mean, from what I've seen, I think the range can be anywhere from about 120 to about 220.
It's like, but it's about two something. Yeah.
Yeah, you can make it that high, especially once you get to from the individual contributor to officially established in a management role. So that can make you can make a pretty good amount.
You need like CSSP to do that job, right? Like,
Well, just like with the Izzo, right? You have to be either IAT or IAM certified, level 3, level 2, depending on the role, right?
yeah.
CISSP is a good starting point to get to that higher level. It's not a starting point. But yeah, it would definitely help. And in some cases, you need it.
Yeah, you need it just to management. You kind of a manager at that point, so or close to it.
I
So
mean, yeah,
you don't know how to deal with some people, so you're gonna need those skills.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. And also, it helps you put stuff in perspective, right? Because when you go from an individual contributor and you're just doing the work, you're only responsible for yourself, and then you're leading people. What you do doesn't really matter in a way, right?
Don't.
Your individual contribution doesn't
It
matter.
don't matter though.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like transferring from that to motivating, inspiring, helping, supporting people, guiding them, pushing them when even they don't think they can do something. It's once again, it's a blessing. It's a burden and a blessing to be a leader in any avenue.
Yeah, being a leader is not an easy job.
It's not.
It's not. So we're gonna go on sort of the RMF trends now to kind of keep people in mind what's coming up. So I know we talked about it briefly, like kind of like SBOMs. You know, East EMAS is starting to take SBOMs now, which is kind of like the inventory tracker with software.
Yep.
Um,
Software bill of material.
do you think that's a new trend that's coming? Yeah, and explain what you think is going to happen with that.
I think that the industry is going to be changing a lot over the next, I'd say about 5 years.
Probably, yeah.
I think mainly what I will be referencing for this is the SWIFT initiative.
Yeah, I know about Swiss. Go ahead and talk about that. Go ahead.
It's SWFT, Software Fast Track Initiative, I think. But basically, it's a request for information where they're saying, okay, we have 4 things that we're looking for. We're trying to implement AI. We're revamping the RMF process. Those are 2 I can remember right now. But
So it's kind of Swift is kind of kind of like the software side is more the software fast tracking the software to get it ATO compliance.
it's the software too. It's more so that it's a new process that's coming out to automate and make the RMF process more efficient. And I think the new framework or the construct that just came out is also a sign of that.
Yeah, and with that happening, that means a lot of our jobs. I don't know about your job, but I know for Izzo, it can kind of take out our job off that.
I don't
in a way, or monitor, or you're gonna learn how to get on to get your fit your way into that kind of way.
I'll say it like this. You're going to have to be more technical. I think that's the biggest impact of this, right? Because in GRC, you can be a checklist guy,
Yeah,
right? You can look at the paperwork, you can do line by line and say, okay, this is compliant and this is not compliant. You can solely do documentation, right? But I think the movement from Swift, which emphasizes AI automation, and the new constructs, I think between the 2 of those, it's going to be a lot of movement towards, okay, you got to be technical in GRC.
yeah, because a friend to the show, AJ Yan, I was sitting there, I was reading his book about GRC engineering. I kind of showed you something where the government's kind of moving towards that.
Yeah.
You got to learn DevOps at this point. You got to be a DevOps. Your GRC is becoming a DevOps position soon.
Yeah, for sure. Because the way the SBOM goes, basically there's going to be software factories or software pathways that are being implemented as opposed to entire systems being built up. Or at least I think that's the direction it's going in. That's my interpretation of it. And with that said, it's more so that the focus is going to be on continuous monitoring and making sure you're only using stuff from the SBOM. So if you do that, what's left to do? Well, you have to look at the actual software itself. You have to look at the actual processes for assessing the software. You have to look at the pipeline, and that goes into DevSecOps. And that kind of pairs very well with the movement to the cloud, right?
So what you're saying is, if in the next 5 years, government's slow, maybe 10.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't learn these skills, you're basically gonna be out of a job. What you're saying, or slowly push back.
The best way to stay competitive would be to learn those skills. I'll say it like that. I'm hesitant to say anybody's going to be out of a job. I hope that's not the case. But I just try to prepare for reality, you know?
It's the reality, because even I was looking at AJ on. I know I keep referencing him. Like, he had his book out, and somebody actually got a job in GRC engineering recently, which is basically DevOps. And it's like, that's the new move. They're hiring for that. Or you can already have people that's in the cloud engineer now take your job because they already know how to. All they got to do is learn compliance. Compliance is not hard to learn. You don't think so?
No, compliance.
I say it take at least a year or two just to learn compliance. Like,
I mean, I'll say read the CCSRG.
Okay.
Try to learn that for 6 months and come back and just try to learn it on your own. It can get very convoluted, complex, right? Like GRC is a business position. You're a business analyst at that point, because you're looking at the compliance requirements, and then at the next level, you're going to be looking at technical, and you're going to be looking at, okay, how can I make this work under these specific scenarios? And you have to apply it effectively. That's actually a lot harder than I think people give it credit for.
So say if you don't want to learn technical, what's another option where you would go? Maybe become a manager?
I mean, even if you're a manager, you have to understand the system that you're managing.
I agree. But some don't.
Yeah. I mean,
some
I'm not
don't.
wrong.
But try to be devil's advocate.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Some don't. But I think between the direction that GRC is moving in, let's back up. Even before this direction was being moved in, right? If you don't understand the system that you're responsible for and you're managing, it's going to show. That's not going to reflect well on you, the agency or organization you're working in. And also, that can lead to mistakes that can cost money and security, the security of our country.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a good place to be.
Do you think the government space is a good space right now, based off all that? Yeah. Still a good space?
Relatively speaking, yes. I think I've been blessed to be secure in the position that I'm in. So, but I've also seen a lot of people more skilled or more experienced than me losing their roles and having a hard time getting a new job. So I have to say yes, considering that.
That's a smart answer.
Tech is a tough industry.
Yeah, it's a tough, because I've seen people I'm talking about some straight killers, and they can't get a job right now.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And I don't know what's going on. I'm like, is it because of the industry, or is it because like now it's not even about applying for jobs. You got to know somebody at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like it's kind of like a tech bubble, right? You know, the housing crisis in 2008. It's a tech bubble. You have AI coming in where the perspective, at least, is that the average worker can be replaced, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's more so that AI is an amplifier, right? So if you have one or two high-performing people that really know the process and understand what they're doing, giving them an AI tool can make it to where they can do the work of 6 to 10 average people. Right?
Yeah, they better get some more money though. If I'm doing 10 other jobs.
Exactly.
And that's the only issue about SCA-R. I'll be working like 10, 12, sometimes 10 programs at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, but we have a good program. We'll have a support system to make sure you're good to go. But yeah, it can be a lot for sure. But it's fun, honestly.
What do you think about zero trust? Is that a new because with zero trust, it's not really a thing. Like, it's obvious you're gonna put, as much countermeasures, but it's not really a software. It's just kind of like
It's
a word.
It's a word.
A word, to be honest with you. I've been to so many conferences and they said zero trust, and I'm like,
I think stuff can be a buzzword when the understanding across the board isn't there, right? Zero trust is.
my bad. You get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's start there. I agree with you, but I'm saying a lot of people who are on these conferences, just like blockchain. Let's compare it to blockchain. right? When blockchain came out, the people that have a good, solid understanding of cryptography looked at it and said, oh, we already know what this is. It's just being implemented in a different environment in a new way, right? So you have that baseline understanding. But for people in tech that haven't gotten that understanding of cryptography yet, that's literally blockchain is a new word, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same way with zero trust. It really boils down to best practices that have already been established, but we kind of strayed away from my perspective.
Yeah. Because it's basically cryptography, and I did that in my master's program. It's just encryption, Well, a little bit more but you get what I'm saying.
It's just it's a thought process. It's a little bit of everything applied well. It's a process thing where you make sure, okay, what processes do we have to ensure that we trust the individuals that we have, right? It could be technology. It can be to your point, cryptography, right? Okay, how often do we reissue the keys? Do you reissue keys after every 60 seconds to where that's the real zero trust, right? Because 60 seconds is a very short time.
Yeah.
But you got to think about the overhead. I'm just using that as an example. Or it can be identity and access management. You might be using an IDP, an identity provider, where you're saying, okay, this is a single sign-on, this third party isn't managing. We're just going to let them do their thing. We're going to tell them what requirements we want to meet, and they're good to go. So zero trust is an inch deep in a lot of different areas. I'll say it like that.
Yeah, so just hear about it, but it's not really. So the main thing you're focusing on is learning technical skills is probably going to get you the best where you need to go.
Learning technical skills and knowing how to apply them.
Okay.
I think the application is what's important. And then I think also people often get their head in the books, so to speak, to where even in their role, they're just working within their individual scope. You have to understand how it applies in the broad scheme of things, right? Because you can be right that something isn't compliant, but if that's not a major stopper, or if it's identified as high risk, but the application of the system means that it's not a high risk, you have to be able to identify that, right?
Yeah, and just read. Like I remember one time I was working on something, and it was categorized as a Cat 2, but really it was a Cat 1. It was sending information to Microsoft. I'm like, that's a Cat 1, man, and just reading it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's straight up Cat 1, man.
That's something leaving your ATO boundary. You got data that's managed by the government going to a different organization that you're not even privy to how they manage it.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah. So that's where the understanding the technology and understanding the application and the meaning of the stuff comes into play. That's where you can't be a checklist person.
Yeah.
That's one thing I would say. You cannot be a checklist person. You definitely will not survive over the next few years.
Yeah, keep that in mind, everybody. GRC is not checklists. Make sure you become more technical, whatever we view as technical, because even they say a SCA-R is not technical, but really it is. Izzo's not technical. That's what people say. They say it's not technical.
I can see how an Izzo isn't required to be technical. I think a better word is hands-on.
Hands-on.
I think a better word is hands-on. You have to understand the technology. You have to be able to call people out when stuff isn't configured right, but you don't have to be hands-on and configure it yourself.
Yeah, that's a good word. I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the end. Can you share to the audience where they can find you at?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, Dominique Richardson. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have a personal brand. I'm just looking to build a community.
Well, you got a brand, and you're starting here.
All right, well, starting here, first podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so what is one thing you want to lead the audience with? A statement, a quote, something that you want to lead the audience with that something you want, anything. It can be anything.
If you do the work, success will come. Opportunity looks like hard work. Do the hard work, understand how you fit in, and you will be successful. But you got to do the work first. That's all it really takes.
Yeah, sacrifice something, to get to that point.
Oh, and of course, leave it to God.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Leave it to God. Yeah, that's a good one too. Okay, and then what is your goals for the next 5 years?
I would say community, building a community, being more involved in the community, making sure I give back. Christianity, deepening my faith in God. It's something I've gotten back to. And contentment, because I mean, I've worked hard to get here, but I've realized a lot of my upbringing came from came from a lot of struggle. And I realized a lot of what I learned in that process, I have to unlearn now. And that's been very hard. Like, for example, I took my first vacation in 10 years. Like,
What?
a year ago.
Dang, you must have been hard. Dang, I love that though. Where'd you go?
I went to Barbados.
Oh, congrats. That's a
I
good one.
went on a cruise, went to Bimini, went to, where else did we go? Turks and Caicos, swam in the ocean. It was nice.
I ain't swimming. You know, I'm black, man. I ain't going in there.
Hey, I mean, it was nice. You gotta, man, swimming is great.
I'll be able to swim. I gotta learn how to swim.
Oh yeah, you definitely learn, but it's an experience, man.
I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you. That's good, man. And I'm glad you content me, because you know, in our space, and I've been made aware that people that's like tech people like me is always like, we got to get more. We got to get more. Sometimes you got to just sit back and just, this is what you do. This is who you really are.
Yeah, and that's, if being honest, that's something I've really struggled with, right? Because when you come from so little, when you come from where you've struggled to get what you have, all you know is that fight to get more. And I think that's hindered me in a lot of ways. I think that's prevented me from being able to give back to the community the way I want to. And I think that's something I need to change about myself. So that's what I'm working on for the next 5 years.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you, you know, coming to give this knowledge to the people, giving back. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and explaining some of the things that you've been through and where you're going. So I'm happy for you coming on. Thank you, Dominique, for coming on.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me, man.
No problem. So for anybody watching the podcast, remember, like the video, share the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, go on to techwokepodcast.com website, check out rmfacademy.io. And remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one.